Hello and welcome to another episode of Because Things Can Be Different, the podcast that looks at all things design and business related. I'm here again with Mr. Oliver Underwood,
Hello.
our head of design in Liquid Group. And I believe today on the agenda is the interior design side of coffee shops, not the nuts and bolts of it.
No,
like we did last time.
So the episode 3, I guess, in this series, we were talking about, the bricks and mortar side of things. So
The pitfalls.
If
you didn't watch that, it's a useful one. We mentioned that's the one that's going to say you money, and this one's going to cost you money.
So that one was talking about location, property, and budgets, or the right budget for you. And this one's talking about interior design trends.
What you should spend your budget on.
Yeah, why actually paying attention to your interior is important, and also we're going to start off with a little bit of context on where the
that's
coffee
what
industry
I was
was.
about to say. Yeah, so should we start off where the coffee industry's come from over the last, let's go 10 years, because that's how long we've been in it, or we've been slightly longer, which makes me feel very old. But so let's go from where it started, and then where it's moved on to.
Yeah,
and then let's take a breath. So that'll be us just before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Take a breath at that point, and then let's explain what we think COVID's going to affect and why we feel that these ongoing trends are going to be important to people's businesses. So I think that'd be the most useful for you guys. It's difficult. We spend our lives looking at this, so we've tried to divide these things up where it's kind of, there's some key takeaways. So 10 years ago, coffee industry.
So we're talking third wave coffee, which is basically lots of independents were starting up, rivaling the Starbuckses of the world. But all of these independent coffee shops were serving excellent coffee, but were all looking rather much the same, sort of industrial style is the operative word.
Yeah, the industrial style.
Not there's anything wrong with that, but they were all looking the same. Now, that's very difficult in a highly competitive market. At the before COVID, you had rising rents, rising staff costs, and you were competing with other independents, maybe just down the road from you.
I think the key bit that gets missed by some people that ring us and ask us for some advice or want to instruct us as designers is within the coffee industry, the education and the knowledge of the customer kind of went through the roof in quite a short time span. And a lot of that is to do with people like Allegra with the coffee festivals, where people could go there and they could meet and talk to people that really do know coffee and have worked in it for many years. And they were becoming very interested in the nuances of it. So what machine should they have at home? What machine does their favourite coffee shop have? Whether the barista's any good, whether you can have pour over, or what beans you should be using for all these different things.
Really driving up the quality of the coffee and the extraction methods.
Yeah, it's gone towards where I think it was the 80s had quite a resurgence in the detail part of wine. So it wasn't just a bottle of wine anymore. It was what vineyard it came from, and that has really happened with the coffee industry. Now, how does that affect the interior? Well, the interiors had to start to match that level of detail, and
that took a long time for it to actually get going.
It did. I think a lot of people tried to eke out their business, even their brand and stuff, for longer than the industry was actually allowing them to. I think it's fair to say.
And the industry is becoming more mature. The interior was lagging behind. Arguably, brand was as well to a certain extent.
Yeah, and that did start to pick up. So we're moving forward to just before COVID, to 2018-19. That had really started to pick up. People were creating some really, really nice interiors. Including our studio.
People were looking at.
we were doing a lot more. What I mean by that is not just us, but our clients wanted us to do more impressive stuff.
Yeah.
And they obviously the return on investment was there as well, because the industry was picked up. It was becoming more popular. You could sell more coffee.
That's right. The whole business of coffee was being looked at in a more of a mature way, I think.
The coffee and trend had started where people would be serving, rather than just a snack or a piece of cake, it might have actually a high quality kitchen there, or at least even if they didn't have
serving
a kitchen
cocktails
there,
in the evening, for example.
yeah, so having coffee and alcohol, and there's some great examples of that out there, and companies that have really built a very strong business off the back of the coffee, and the interiors had to follow suit. So can you sit in
can you sit on an apple crate while drinking a cocktail?
Or in the evening when you've got a live band playing. I mean, it's really diversified over the last 10 years, and now we're really seeing the interiors, or we were seeing the interiors having to pick up and follow suit.
Meet that level of standard. Really.
Yeah, and the needs as well. So,
and then COVID
where are we now?
So, not to mention the word too much, but so really, it's now more important than ever to really focus in on the interior, and the reason is we've all kind of been shut up. Obviously, it's just changes throughout the world, but we've all kind of been shut indoors.
I don't think there's many countries that haven't done some form of lockdown. So regardless of where you're listening to this or watching this, we've all been affected by it, and it's normally has stopped us from going to our favourite coffee shop.
And however long this lasts, at some point it is going to come to an end, and we're going to want to seek out these affordable luxuries. And coffee shops really do supply that, and they did do in the last sort of recession.
I mean, I would argue that's where the coffee industry really got its boom, is because it was the affordable luxury. You would go to the town or your local shopping centre-y kind of area, and this was around the world as well, and maybe not buy the stuff that you looked at, but you would go and have a coffee for lunch, sit there with a sandwich, and then go and carry on doing your window shopping. And although retail took a huge hit, coffee industry actually started to boom.
And if you think about it, it's kind of creating almost a perfect storm for that. We all kind of really, really want these affordable luxuries now. And there will be the time where we can actually go out and have them.
Yeah.
And it is a really good idea to get yourself prepared for that, I think, is basically what we're saying.
Yeah, as a business, not a person that just wants to go out. So what can we do to help, I suppose, grab hold of the reins of the following boom or potential boom that we could get out of the back end of this horrible circumstances we're in? It's creating stuff that allows. So we feel like the interior should work for the business, and it's about return on investment. So if you're going to put money into your interior and for a refresh, or you're wanting to start your first coffee shop, then it's about making it work for you. Now, what are we talking about there? There's some very successful companies that have created very photogenic interiors that have then almost created a following on Instagram and other social media platforms because of their interior.
Increasing their revenue.
So they're getting free marketing off the back of their interior. Now, where can we drill this down? So we're talking, some people have done really successful kind of selfie walls. They've got lighting, neon lighting, for example.
Tabletops will be
the tabletops, high quality materials. We're going to go into that type of thing in a bit, but it's like, so if you've got a really nice looking table rather than some sort of horribly finished plastic, formica-y thing that's very practical because you can throw bleach at it every day, but actually is hideous, well, they don't look very good in photos. Where if you've got, like a hardwood top or marble or stone or something like that, and then someone does a top-down shot of your latte art that your barista's done a great job of, and then they tag the business in it, and etc. It goes, and then you can get a real following.
And those natural materials, again, we'll touch on later, but they can be protected with waterable lacquers, so they are just as hard wearing for throwing bleach on with COVID and all that sort of stuff.
There and thereabouts, I mean, it's not just keep on putting plastic on everything and expecting it to be okay. We can do better, and the rewards in that are people sharing photography and other such things. So there's a few things that people have done, like living walls have been very popular. We really like them. It can become a bit of a cliche. I think maybe in the office environment it can be seen as a bit of a cliche, not so much in coffee shops, but There's other things like wall cladding, so covering. So rather than just your standard paint job, you can have some timber work up on the walls.
Yeah.
It gives a nice spot for someone to take a photo. We're really just looking for photogenic opportunities.
It works twofold. So you sort of go for trying to build up a social media, getting your customer base basically to build a social media presence for you. You can also build your own social media presence as well, using your interior as almost like the stage.
Your set, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And even if that doesn't interest you particularly, what you are getting if you do go down that route is you're going to get a much nicer interior anyway, which people are actually going to want to spend time in, and that is very important.
Yeah, so it's kind of the win-win situation.
Yeah.
It's more photographic because it's a nicer interior. People are taking photos and you're getting that like sideline coverage, and then you're also getting a place that people want to dwell in longer and hopefully spend more money.
Yeah. If you're selling luxury coffee, then maybe your interior should meet that standard.
Tie in with it, yeah. So I think that's a key bit that can be missed and not seen. Return on investment on this type of thing can be kind of hard to figure out because for monetary terms, etc., you're not quite sure where these things add up. Well, we've seen this work for our clients where it becomes a destination, we have a client where people will travel around to the different cities that they're located in their country just to see their new store and get photos within it and say that they've visited it. If that's not return on investment, we don't know what it is.
So that's a very strong interior trend to sort of pay attention to. What would you say another one is
I think looking at the whole thing coming from where we are now in this situation is the escapism side of it. So creating a space that is cocoon-like, i.e. not physically
a haven.
Haven. So as you step through the door, you should be aiming for it to feel like you've stepped into a entire experience.
Your stresses of life maybe don't seem quite so stressful anymore.
And it all sounds very airy fairy, and we do understand that, and we get accused of that as designers on a constant basis by friends and family. But it is important, and it's something that you will notice. And hopefully, just listening to this, if you go away and just next time you go into when you're allowed, depending where you were located, but when you go into somewhere, you're going to start noticing, when someone's really got it right and they've concentrated on, they've got some soft furnishings, the acoustics are good, and all of those things. The lighting. Let's go into some of that actually because it is useful. So, what are the key things in the interior that we look at when we're designing something for someone?
Well, we've kind of already touched on it with greenery. Really like greenery. And then
because
it plays off the whole well-being side of things, which is very obviously acutely important at the moment.
And then lighting.
So natural lighting, again helping with the Instagram side of things. And then with artificial lighting as well, getting a warm sort of feel to it. I think you'd agree, you can have a relatively, I guess, understated interior, but if you get the lighting right, it elevates everything.
100%. So we're talking not only decorative, but your more architectural lighting. So if you've got some spots, then you want strip lights, for example, where you've just got a dead flat bright light across the whole interior.
Centre lights,
it's like your centre light in your living room. I apologise to anyone that has their centre light on in their living room, but it doesn't create a nice, warm and inviting space as lamps would. So
you want to throw off shadows and you want to throw off
scallops on the walls. The scallops are the kind of light shape that you get on the wall. Creating those can turn a relatively boring blank wall into something that can look very pretty.
You can use it to highlight sort of points of interest as well. So if you do have a more of an Instagrammable wall feature, for example, again, you can design the lighting to sort of highlight that and add some kind of focus.
Levels of lighting, not just from brightness, but actual levels. So if you bring in low pendants down in some areas, you want variety in an interior because you don't know what mood the person that is walking in is going to be in. So some people might want to come in and work. So then that comes into stuff like high seating, benches, other things, so they can jump on their laptop with PowerPoints there and work on it. Now that doesn't mean that you can't have a quiet spot with some soft seating, and then you bring pendant lights down, and it brings the level of the room down from a psychological point of view because you have lower, and you're sitting down, it feels a little bit cozier. So if you're sitting there and having a nice quiet meeting or just a chat with a friend, you don't feel exposed and you don't feel like you should pull your laptop out and start working. That can be missed by a lot of people actually in coffee shops.
Yeah, it is overlooked, but it is one of the most powerful things you can do to improve.
And you can squeeze different locations in. Well, I say different locations, different areas and looks and feel within one shop, and it doesn't have to be a vast unit to do that either. So you can go from front and back to unit in a small one, and you can change the level of the seating, the level of the lighting, etc. So that's a little key trick that we use.
Yeah, and then another one would be, well, I don't know whether you want to touch on materials. That's sustainability, that side of things.
I mean, they're both, they're very interlinked, but let's make it simple from a choice point of view. As materials, we're looking at more natural materials, which is normally naturally more sustainable. So if you've got a bunch of lime green plastic chairs at the moment in your existing coffee shop, unfortunately they need to go to the recycling bin, because I can't see that fashion coming back very quickly. Not the lime green necessarily, but plastic. It's just, we need to really move away from that. And I think as a society around the world, we're all starting to realise it. And people will judge, I think. So it's nice to have some natural materials and some better quality stuff.
Richness in material, I think we've used a lot in the studio, isn't it? So having the right textures, using leathers, using sustainably sourced timber, whether it's a veneer, not plastic.
Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with a veneer. You don't have to have solid furniture made out of, American black walnut or something like that. Obviously, if it's sustainably sourced, which is hard to come by. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with a veneer. It's just, does it have to be a plastic veneer that has a wood print on it? Like, it's basically like having laminate floor on your tabletop.
Fortunately, the industry was moving away from that sort of fakeness, because it doesn't reflect.
Quality.
Coffee. Yeah, no, it doesn't at all.
No, so if you're trying to serve quality coffee, everything needs to follow suit. So quality timber, stuff like the flooring, for example. If you're going to put tiles down, what sort of tiles are you putting down? They need to be good quality. You don't want to. It's not just about the cost of it. It's just about the selection as well. Like, think about it. Detail focus is what we do as a design agency, and we would advise anyone that's trying to do it by themselves to just pay attention to that. Don't try and cut too many corners, because it's kind of, I think I mentioned this in another episode, it's being penny wise and pound stupid.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a better saying than that, but so yeah, invest now to reap the rewards later. I think that's what we're saying. It's to get the return on investment you want. Also, better quality materials last.
Well,
yeah, this is it.
I mean, in terms of sustainability, we did touch on it. So yeah, again, it is choosing sustainable materials where you can. Again, it should be important to any brand, really, any business. Sustainability should be.
I think that customers are starting to demand it. So even if you honestly, in your heart of hearts, don't care, I just don't think it can be anymore. I started this agency 12 years ago, and it was purely to try and promote sustainable manufacturing and interior design. And it was a bit of an outlier. Now it almost blends in with other companies that have been around even longer, but they've had to adapt their ways of doing things to tie in with what customers want. So I don't think we can ignore it. You personally don't have to care about it as much. You should do, but we can't tell you how to think, but your customers will. And it's a certain set of people that will come to a coffee shop like this, and it's a certain demographic of people, a lot of which would have been educated, university educated, etc. So just by default, being in this industry, you are going to be dealing with that type of customer that is going to be a bit more educated and have an opinion on it, at least. So we would advise you to take
clever decisions when it comes to decisions on your interior. The sorts of furniture, the sorts of materials.
Plastic chairs are out. Plastic tables are
out. The colourways as well is worth sort of touching on as well.
I think it's a difficult one, if I'm honest, because one, it depends on the sort of climate you're in.
Yeah.
So do you
and your brand and your
so it is subjective, but there's things where a trend, where you've got like darker tones and richer tones to tie in with the richer materials, then you've got lighter tones to tie in with the lighter materials,
and then you've got
with the Scandinavian
combination of,
then you've got the combination too. So it is a really difficult one to kind of pick out. But be led by the brand, and don't go nuts with the branded colours. Now, we own a branding agency, so we branding can be more than having your logo on the wall. I think that's something that we try and get
there are
across
subtle
to our
nods
customers.
to a brand that need to
This
be
is
done
it.
throughout an interior, and it isn't just the case, like plastering the logo everywhere and having the same colours everywhere.
Yeah, and I would point out even large companies like McDonald's have actually done this, where you can walk into some of their schemes now and it's not covered with McDonald's logos. In fact, I don't know whether there is a McDonald's logo in some of their schemes. It's got like timber, and I must admit they are using plastics and stuff, which I don't agree with. But
quotes
the
on the
overall
wall
look,
to do with food are definitely no.
yeah, those things you don't want to be seen as if you're trying too hard. So don't think that it has to be obvious. Allow your clients to discover the story and discover the brand and feel comfortable within it. Almost treat it as a branded asset in its own right. So you wouldn't embellish, or at least you shouldn't embellish your logo with twiddles and flowers and stuff like that. So then don't think you have to do that with the interior. The interior in its own right can have that look. And then if you are rolling it out, or you already have more than one location, you can do that across the board, and they don't have to look the same either. We've done that for a client.
Yeah.
Where each location, each flagship store is different, because it's more about their overall brand and it's about creating an experience. It's not about them looking the same.
Subtle DNA that run throughout, which is
like furniture choices and lighting choices and stuff
material
like that.
Choices.
Yeah, so it's fluid. But again, it's just, you need to have consideration to all the different aspects. And I don't think there's any shortcuts to doing it well. And you do get rewarded. We've got customers that have been very heavily rewarded because they've invested the time and the money up front to create really nice experiences for their clients. And they, years down the line, they're still reaping those rewards from a turnover point of view, customers coming back and recommending it, and being able to open second, third, fourth, fifth locations.
So I think the last sort of trend we might want to just touch on really is mid-century.
Yes, so that's a trend that we don't see going anywhere particularly quickly. Famous last words, it'll be the first thing to disappear. But no, we see it as, it's quite timeless in its own right. It was timeless when it was around the first time.
And it's a good base. You can mix it with other styles as well. So we're not saying, like I think you said before, if it starts to look like a museum, then you've probably done it wrong. Yeah,
that is a look in its own right, and we're not suggesting that's one to go for, but using it, there were still high quality pieces of furniture, for example, using rich materials, rich upholstery, different textured upholstery, different textured finishes, the wallpapers, for example. So modern takes on that will work really well. We're using it in our own studios, like a nice base point to move from, and then you can tune it in either direction, like maximalism, minimalism. You can take a mid-century line and use that as your baseline to take it off in either one of those directions. So it's very flexible. We don't really see it going very well, going away very quickly. It's a mouthful.
No, I think it'll be here to stay
for quite a while. We're always trying to make sure an interior can last
because
as long as possible. It's an investment, so we understand that, and in the end, everything we do is for business, and it's to create more business. So it's not just a case of creating something that looks pretty.
We have been known to tell a customer or a client that industrial is not really what they want.
Even if that is really, really what they want, we would advise against it, because it's aged. By the time you've finished it, you're already out of date, and we would advise. To
be fair, give it 2 years, it might be coming back again.
Everything comes back around, and I'm pretty sure my mum once told me that if you're old enough to remember it around the first time, then you're too old to do it the second. So I think we've covered a lot of things. I think some easy ones to put it down to bullet points is natural materials. And then
greenery,
sustainability, and thinking about the photographic side of it. So are there areas that people can take some photos? Is there a focal point? To try and get that free interaction online.
And I guess the one final thing that we probably want to add on the end, which is authenticity. Don't do something that isn't right for you as a business, you as a brand. You need to make sure your interior is aligned with who you are in. Definitely. So hopefully that has given you a bit of an insight into
our thought process while we're designing an interior. So thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.